Hello, I'm Sean Ploman of Adapt Productions. I'm also an Adapt member. Today I'll be interviewing Stevie Hopkins of 3E Love. He runs his own business.
How you doing?
Doing okay. You?
I'm pretty solid.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem at all. Tell us about 3E Love and how it got started.
I like to call 3 Love a social awareness entrepreneurial experiment. So I call it. It is a business, but it's got a message much larger than a typical business. A lot of people confuse it with a nonprofit because it does have such a prominent social message. 3E Love stands for Embrace, Educate, Empower, and then Love Life. And this is our trademark slogan, our logo, I mean. International Symbol of Acceptance, also known as the Wheelchair Heart logo. And started in 2004 with the logo for a college t-shirt. A bunch of us were dating our PAs, which is like against the rules, so we had a bar crawl where we all celebrated the fact that we were breaking the rule.
Oh, everybody needs a good bar crawl every now and then.
Everyone needs a little bar crawl. It's good stuff. But it was a good time. I remember it fondly. And we had some sweet pink t-shirts, and my sister Annie actually created the symbol. And then a few years later, we realized it had a lot more potential than just like relationship and disability.
So it started off as far as like dating PAs and
kind of a joke.
Yeah.
It was a joke.
Then just became a solid idea and took off from there.
Yeah, it didn't take off until really 2007, 2006. My sister Annie got us a tattoo on her shoulder, and everyone fell in love with it. And like literally, probably over 100 people got the tattoo within the next year. And we knew right then and there how much people related to the symbol. Our own personal meaning for it and what we believed it was about, it's so much bigger than that. I mean, people of all disabilities kind of fell in love with it, so we incorporated in 2007. And then got it trademarked in t-shirts and hoodies and bags and stickers and buttons and all sorts of stuff. So.
With the E's, can you elaborate on that? Like, just embrace, educate, empower.
Yeah, embrace, educate, and empower, and love life is kind of like the corporate mission statement to create products and services that live by that motto. So to embrace diversity, educate your community, empower one another, and love life. So we always say that 3E Love is more than living disabled. It's about living. So it's more about the social aspect of disability instead of the physical, medical aspect.
Yeah.
The fun stuff.
Oh yeah.
The bar crawls.
Well, again, bar crawls get your mind off of the medical community constantly wanting to fix you.
Right.
I know, because of course we're broken.
Right. So, especially me.
Well, I mean,
I'm just kidding.
I'm the one with the metal leg, so I
think it looks good.
Oh. I myself, I think it looks hot, but you know.
Okay, let's get away from that.
Okay, but tell us about Annie.
Annie was my sister. She passed away in January of 2009.
I remember her just fondly.
Thank you.
She was amazing. She was awesome. I loved her attitude on everything.
Yeah, she was cool. Everyone fell in love with her without even knowing her. So. I don't know, like her spirit is much to do with the symbol and the company, you know, kind of like the flare against the grain, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So, kind of the whole company itself is really like against the grain. I kind of try to do what people don't expect, you know. So
you described it as the business itself as a social experiment.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I call it a social experiment just because, I mean, I know what I'm doing, but I am just, from day to day, I just did all sorts of ideas on how I can use the symbol and use the business and the products and the services to sort of create social awareness for people with disabilities. And I don't know if it's going to work.
Hmm.
You know, maybe it won't work. Maybe it's just a symbol that, people relate to. Maybe, I mean, I like to believe that it's going to help change some sort of social acceptance of disability. A big part of what 3D Love is about, though, is just like about love
Yeah.
and life
Yeah.
and loving. That's like the one thing I do focus on is
Yeah.
like have a positive mindset all the time.
Hmm. Scott and Will had gotten some shots of 3D Love, the business itself. Can you describe the process? Like where it's at.
Yeah, well, in the basement we have a print shop, so we do all of our own printing. I hired some friends and cousins and stuff. They helped me do all the printing and all the shipping and handling. I can't, really do it myself, so figure hire them to help me out. And then in the future, I hope to hire people with disabilities once I can afford it. That's like the long-term goal, is to hire other people with disabilities, like empower people to work hard and have goals, love life, do it up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, like, as far as the printing itself, it's computerized, from what I understand.
No, it's manual.
It's manual?
It's manual screen printing.
Okay.
It's how they did it back in the old days. They still do it the same way. Bigger companies have like big digital presses, but we're just at the old manual press. So nothing elaborate. You could do it. Come on over. We'll teach you. And print your own 3D Love underwear, whatever you want to do.
Just need a ride out there, I think.
Okay.
Need a way out there and then
Sweet.
you can. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. We can put the symbol on anything we want.
Mm.
So it's really cool.
As far as the business, where do you see it leading? Like, do you have any new products coming out? Like a new apparel?
Yeah. We never really wanted it to be a t-shirt company. The idea was to just use t-shirts to get brand awareness and to raise money, capital, to do other stuff that we wanted to do. My sister and I really wanted to do disability awareness education curriculum in the K-12 school district. So to build a model and then sell it to school districts. And to do speaking tours and travel and do awareness through services.
Yeah.
And not so much physical products.
Yeah.
But the t-shirts and stuff, it took on a life of its own. Can't stop what happens naturally, Sean Pullman.
True.
So, yeah, I've got a lot planned. We got some 3D Love sweatpants coming out in the fall.
Cool.
That'll be cool. Just all sorts of stuff. We can put the symbol on anything we want. So.
I'm gonna ask my prosthetist if I could get it for the cover of my sea leg. Actually,
that'd be awesome. I can get you a screen for that.
I'm already having something else like put on, but I can't. I don't see why I couldn't get a second cover for it.
For sure, man. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'll be a first. We haven't seen that one yet. So many hundreds of people have the tattoo now.
Oh, I've been meaning to get that. It's just I don't have the money.
You can be the first guy with a printed prosthetic.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Pays to advertise.
Awesome.
Has the business community been accepting of you and 3D Love, or?
Who cares? I don't really work with them. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Just work with people that like the product, and nonprofits embrace it, disability organizations, in business community. I don't go to the town hall meetings or anything.
Yeah.
There's no need to,
Yeah.
So we're doing our own thing, right, Sean?
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Well, I just didn't know if you perhaps got some flack.
No. Not at all. No flack.
Okay.
But just, I don't know. It's good. Why would we have flack, Sean?
Well, now actually we are.
What?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Out of time. I wanted to thank you again
Sweet,
for coming
man.
out and allowing me to interview you for this.
No problem.
And not just that, but allowing us to tape, get some nice footage of 3D Love, and for you to tell us what that was about. And
Awesome. Yeah, no. It's good times.
yeah, definitely.
Good times had by all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you again.
Awesome.
Get up, stand up, glad you could join us. This is Adapt of Chicago Productions. I'm your host, Barb Westlick. And today our guest is the Executive Director of Progress Center for Independent Living for approximately a year and a half. And he is the producer and host of the first radio show ever to address disability issues. And I'd like to introduce Horacio Esparza, and thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Barb, thank you for inviting me. It's an honor, and I'm very happy to be with you this morning. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about something that I really get excited about, disabilities.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into the ED position.
I came to Progress Center about 10 years ago, exactly in 1999, and I became as the Independent Living Coordinator, and I was on that position for 2 years, and then they promoted me as the Director of the Satellite Office, which is located in the South Side. And when Diane Coleman, our Executive Director, moved to New York, then, well, I got this responsibility. I didn't know why. I didn't know what I was getting, you know. After this big storm, especially budget cuts and so many other things. So, but I'm very happy. You know, I'm doing the things that I really like. This is the project, my project of life, disabilities. I'm very involved. I'm very passionate, and I'm doing what I really love. You know, talk about disabilities and advocate for people with disabilities.
Okay, and so the radio show, you were telling me that it runs for 2 hours in Spanish and then an hour in English.
The Spanish radio show, we had originally we had 1 hour, and then we went up to 2 hours, and then 3 hours. But then people at Progress Center, members of Progress Center, they said, well, why don't we have 1 hour in English? If we have 3 hours in the Spanish, why don't we have a radio show in English? So then we decided to have this 1 hour in English, and the people is responding pretty good. So pretty soon we're going to be celebrating the 5th anniversary and the 2nd anniversary for the English one.
Congratulations. Okay, and so the name in English is in the Independent Living Radio Show, and then what is it
in Spanish is Radio Vida Independiente, and English is Independent Living Radio Show. And the mission of the radio show is to educate the community about disabilities. Not only informing people with disabilities about services and what's going on in the disability community, but I think the most important thing is to educate the society about disabilities. Because the biggest barrier for people with disabilities is not our disabilities, is the barriers that the society often don't help us to knock down. One of the best ways we can educate the community is through the media. And that's the mission of our radio show. And also I want to say that the Spanish one, the Spanish radio show is the unique radio show in the whole country about disabilities.
And you do have a website, and in your website there is a weekly calendar that gives the agenda for what's going to be presented during that week on the show.
You're right. That's correct. Every, like every Wednesday or Thursday, we send out by email the calendar of the radio show, what we're going to have, on the coming Saturday. And we send a calendar in English for the English radio show, and other calendar for the Spanish radio show. We have about 900 email addresses that we send that calendar out to. And we have a website. This website is for the, it's in Spanish, and it's for the Spanish radio show.
And what's the name of the website?
It's www.radiovida, V-I-D-A, Independiente, INDEPENDIENTE.com. RadioVidaIndependiente.com. And but I want to let you know that one of our goals this year is to have a website in English and also broadcast a radio show in English 24 hours a day, like we are doing it with the Spanish radio show. So those are one of our goals for this year related to the radio show. Also, I want to say that the radio show is under the umbrella of Progress Center for Independent Living. And we receive funding from the Division of Rehab Services under the Department of Human Services for this project. Although, I want to say, and as you might know, airtime on radio or TV is extremely expensive. But the reason we have 3 hours because the vice president of this radio station, Sovereign City Radio or Avenue 950, they are donating 2 hours.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So, or they are giving us, the time for very low cost. So that helps us a lot. And he's very happy about what we are doing in favor of the community with disabilities. And he really likes, he likes the project that we are running about disabilities and educating communities about the community about disabilities. Because my message is always that sooner or later, all of us, we will acquire one or more disabilities. So when he heard about that, he said, well, then maybe I would acquire a disability sooner or later, so I better be educated about it. We are prepared for everything except for in case we acquire a disability. We are not prepared for that. And we need to be prepared because, as I said, sooner or later, by the age or for any other reason, we might acquire a disability. And we should be educated. I remember the first year I had the radio show in Spanish, maybe 6 or 7 months after we came on the air, I received a call at my office. That was a man asking for a wheelchair, how he can get a wheelchair. And I asked him, what happened? And he said, well, I had an accident at my job, and I have a leg amputated. I said, well, yeah, but when that happened, many years ago, because he didn't sound, like depressed, like not accepting his disability.
Yeah.
He sounded very normal. And I asked him, when that happened? And he said, just about a month ago.
Wow, he must have been having a good day that day.
Yeah, I said, you're the first person, that after acquiring a disability sound like very normal.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? And I said, how did you know about us? He said, I'm one of your radio listeners.
Oh.
And I'm listening your radio show since probably 2 months after you started. And back then I didn't have any disability. I just listened. I like to listen to the radio show because the stories you presented, because you always mentioning about when you acquire a disability. But I never expected that I was going to acquire a disability, that soon. And he said, and I didn't take it that bad. So that's one of the testimonies that I can tell people, be prepared, like that listener, that he didn't know he was going to acquire a disability, but when he acquired that disability, he was prepared. He was educated through the radio show. I'm not saying, you know, all of you are going to be disabled listening to the radio show, but you can be educated if that happens, like in this case.
And the other thing is a significant other of a person that has a disability. That can be really beneficial to that person.
No, and besides, and also, Barb, parents.
Right.
You know, parents, when they have a newborn with disabilities, children with disabilities, they don't know how to manage the situation. And many times they think they are very overprotective. And they think that when they die or when they disappear, they don't know what's going to be, you know, what's going to be the future for their children.
I heard that you had a show about guardianship, and I was wondering if you could possibly briefly, if you could tell us about what was discussed during that show.
One of our shows, we had someone from Equip for Equality and from the Community Support Services talking about guardianship. And guardianship is very important because parents, they never think that they need to process a legal guardianship when their children with disabilities turn 18 years old and they are not able to make their own decisions. You know, and in those cases, that's when parents should process that legal guardianship.
And so that basically would appoint somebody to be a guardian over their son or their daughter, and they would handle, like, what things would they handle? What do you handle being a guardian?
Well, you know, especially like estate issues, maybe education, maybe some benefits. You know, who's gonna take care of that child when the parents disappear? So, you know, there are different legal situations where that person will need a guardian.
Thank you so much for coming on our show, and I think this is going to be great for getting the word out about your radio show.
Well, I just want to say, Barb, I invite everybody to listen to our radio show every Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning, WNTD 950 AM, and we are there. Don't pay too much attention to my accent, okay? The most important thing is the message, and hopefully my message is clear. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Thank you, Horacio.
This is Radio Vida Independiente. Thank you for being with us this morning. The mission of this radio show is to educate the community about disabilities. Remember, over 50 million of people with disabilities in the United States have a disability, and over 650 million of people around the world have disabilities. We need to be educated. Remember, sooner or later, all of us, we will acquire one or more disabilities. Thank you for being with us this morning, and thanks God for giving us this great opportunity to talk about disabilities.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight.